Good morning, SharkCast world. Welcome to Catching Up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. I got the coffee, we got the Cronullas, and this is SharkCast Pod, brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the Royal Motor Yacht Club, Import Hacking, and Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate. I'm Sam Shinazzi, OG 2015. That is Kieran Fraser. He's been following this team for a long time and knows all about this club, the ins and outs, the ups and downs, which we saw both of on the weekend. And we're going to get into it and have a bit of fun like we do on a Monday morning. Monday morning's our more light-hearted variety show, but we are going to get, into it because there's a lot to discuss. And I do want to have breaking news, Kieran, for people who watch us on the YouTube. I'm getting some new glasses in the next week or so, and they're not going to be glary. See how they're glary when I look like that?
Yeah, I always get paranoid about that. So that's why I keep rocking back and
It's
forth
some
in my
sort of
chair.
thing on the glasses, and the person who was selling me new glasses went, "Do you want to lose that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to lose that." I said, every Monday morning, my friend and I do this video, and her eyes started rolling. But for our podcast listeners, fascinating stuff. But there is breaking news in the glasses world for Sam Shinazzi, which everyone's just waiting on. Anyway, 30 points to 28. Sharks lose to the Warriors somehow, and a game that the club will rue for a long time. And there were lots of reasons why it happened. People are pointing to one thing, other people are pointing to another way. We're going to get into all of it, but let's start off with acknowledging Cam McInnes. He played his 200th NRL game, had a pretty decent game. We'll talk about one moment he had shortly, but overall, Kieran, a great occasion down at Shark Park on Saturday night as far as a spectacle goes.
It was. The crowd turned up quite late. So I was there for the 20s and it was pretty empty, but then everyone just seemed to arrive right before kickoff and the line started getting pretty crazy. So the atmosphere was actually quite good in the first half. In the second half, it's probably the most upset Shark Park I think I've been in, just with the whole mood of the ET stand and just how angry everybody was. So I haven't seen it like that, but it did take away from Cam's obviously 200th game, which was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's just how it goes. I mean, that's how the game played out. We saw the Warriors score early with the old Shark connection of Metcalf and Johnson. Really good try. Down our sort of middle/left edge, Kafusi was there. And he just some speed and turn got the better of us. We came back into it and really dominated the game from sort of like the 20th minute through to, I guess, the 60th minute. And we saw a turning point there. I mean, I should point out that the Warriors did score a couple of tries before this happened, but the sin bin of Kale Iro was the turning point for me, and then it all sort of fell apart. We actually got back into it, which is fantastic. We were leading, and we know what happened in the end. But as far as a takeaway for you, Kieran, if you take away the refereeing decisions, which we'll get into, give me a high and give me a low as far as performance as a team goes. What's your
So
high?
I think the high would probably be we've got Sifa, Ronnie coming back. That's just being completely honest with you, because we saw what happens when you've got new combinations and players that haven't been together and players that haven't been in their roles. They got exploited, right? So Stone Street had a great game with the ball, but SJ was peppering him with kicks and doing certain different things, right? So that was kind of something where I'm going, well, if we had Ronnie here, I would feel a lot more comfortable, a lot more safer with some of those reads. So I think that's something that we can look forward to. I think the fact that we got Nico back on the field, that is a positive. For everybody saying that, we've got to drop Nico or Nico can't be on 17. There is the world that we live in, he is our highest paid player and he's going to be there in the finals. So we need him match fit and firing like he was before the Origin series. So to get him back on the field, I think that was good. He had some good stuff with the ball. If Royce Hunt takes two more steps forward and goes through the line instead of stopping in the line, he's got a great solo try, had some try assists. So I think that we can look at that with something we can build on. Daniel Atkinson's performance as a center, I thought was admirable. Again, he's not practiced in that position a lot. He hasn't played next to Nico, so combination-wise, it was always going to be a little bit clunky. But I think that's something that we can look at there and say, well, now he's covered every position in the back line for us. So if there is an injury in the finals, we can throw him in there with some confidence instead of throwing in a Hiroti or a Kid. But then on the negatives, I just think the discipline got us again. You can say what you want about the referees, and I will 110% agree with you on the referees, but you've got to defend that stuff and turn away. I know it's super hard when you are just getting peppered. There was like 8-9 minutes where it felt like we didn't see the ball, and it was just penalties late in the tackle count that just absolutely killed us. So the discipline's got to be fixed. And again, we need to get our players back. So there's only one more week left before finals. It's an interesting time.
I completely understand the team letting in a try or two, which they did when the sin bin happened. I cannot understand the last minute of the game. And let's just go there just to get out of the way, right?
Yeah.
We get back into it. We're winning. Metcalf goes for a 2-point field goal, misses. That gives us 7 tackles with approximately a minute and a half on the clock.
But 90 seconds left, yeah.
There you go. 90 seconds. 7 tackles. Now, you should be able to, with hit-ups and slow play the balls, you should be able to get to close to a minute, maybe 50 seconds to a minute. Kick the ball down their end, and that gives them 2 to 3 tackles at the most to go 80 meters, right? With your line set. If they score from there, beautiful. Let's send SJ out a winner. What the Sharkies did was they started doing hit-ups, but they were doing 2-pass hit-ups. So dummy half to Guy. Guy gets the ball, passes. And I have no idea why they were doing that, aside from it seemed like they wanted to make some meters. They didn't really need to make the meters. They just needed to get through their set and kick the ball. We saw, I don't know, was it second or third tackle, given that it was a 0 to start with. Cam McInnes gets the ball, engages the line a little bit, passes to Jack Williams. Jack Williams drops the ball. Scrum, I think, around the 40, 50.
Yep.
At that point, it's alarm bells because the Warriors got nothing to lose. SJ's got nothing to lose. They've had a pretty good half, even though we're leading. And from there, we know what happens. We concede. Pass might have been forward. I don't know. It's line ball. At this point, I don't care. At this point, we should do better. We have 13 men on the field. I don't know. Like, the pass and the play wasn't that good that we couldn't stop it. I'm convinced about that. But even taking that defensive set aside, how do we get in that position where there's 90 seconds on the clock, but we give them the ball with a scrum on the 45-meter line? I cannot get past that. Paul Gallen, the GOAT, we can't... There's only one GOAT, right? We've seen him do it in games where we're coming 16th, and we've seen it where we're about to win a premiership. He puts it under his arm. He holds onto it for dear life. He's not giving it to anyone, usually from dummy half, if not first receiver. Yeah. And he's making 4 or 5 meters with a slow play the ball. You do that 5 times and kick the hell out of it, you're going home a winner. You're possibly coming second. Possibly a home final. But for some reason, didn't happen. And I think 3 years in, with the same players, same coach, got to do better. And it's all very well to say the coach should... For all I know, the coach said do it. I've got no idea. So I'm not having to go at anyone in particular. I'm having to go at the whole team. Situation. Like, it is 101, and they buggered it up. And from the drop ball to scrum, I kind of felt it was on the team to help out their mate who's going to be and has been absolutely ridiculed, currently without a deal, to help him out, let alone finish second potentially, and hold out one set of 6. Now, it is interesting, Kieran, that the ref, as he did for the second half, he was waving 6 again, right around the time they scored. So they would have had a few more tackles anyway with 20 seconds on the clock. Doesn't mean they were going to score. So I'm pretty annoyed by that, as you can tell. The other thing that I'm hearing is that our captain, who played 200 games, he took it upon himself to take the blame. He said he shouldn't have passed the ball. In hindsight, I kind of agree. I'm not going to blame him for the loss. I'm not blaming Jack Williams for the loss at all. Like, it's a team effort. But it's kind of nice to know that at least the captain knows he should have done better in that situation, that maybe next time it won't happen. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, to your point, there was 90 seconds left, right? And you see it all the time when teams make an error, they always stick their finger up and they say 1 minute, because effectively that is defend for 1 minute, one set. That's how long it will take for them to get through, and we'll get the ball back, guys. So just hold on for one set, 1 minute, and we'll get the ball back. And for us to not milk that 1 minute out to the 90 seconds was pretty brutal. What got me was the Warriors left Fanua Blake out in the field for 80 minutes, it felt like. I don't think Fanua Blake went off, and he was unbelievable. Now, where the momentum for that play where they score in the corner comes from is a late offload from him where he pops the ball out and then their dummy half scoots and then they start setting it up. So Sean Johnson broke it down in a press conference where he talks about looks, and it was a 3-play setup for that ball to be put on to DWZ. So that is extremely frustrating to me, because you knew that SJ was going to go down that side of the field as well, and you knew that it was going to be some sort of show and go dummy himself or a long ball, something like that, right? So again, it's easy for us to sit here and say you should be able to shut that down, because Sean Johnson's one of the best playmakers the game has seen. So it's very hard to defend against. But when you have a team that is playing for a lot of things, you should be able to defend those things, because what was going through my head is, if this happens in 2 weeks' time, it's going to hurt a lot more. It's going to be a lot more devastating. And if we put ourselves in positions where they concede 30 points, then we're not going to be in a good spot, right? And the doom and gloom is coming. You're seeing it already, where everybody's saying that they're going to go in straight sets and all that type of stuff. So we need to do something very quickly to address that, and we need to do something to get ourselves out of the mess that we've found ourselves in, because we're one game away from the finals, and we were coasting along quite nicely. We weren't, peaking at that top level. In that first half, when things were kicking into gear, when you saw like the Royce Hunt hit off and then Blake Brayley go straight out of dummy half and we score back-to-back tries, you're starting to say, okay, these guys are actually looking like they are building towards the semis. And, once we get a few of these guys back, it's going to be unbelievable. And then it all just turned and went back to how it was, against some of those lower teams that happened to us earlier in the year. So how they address that, I'm not sure. But, I just on the Jack Williams thing, I don't know anything about what's happening with his contract situation, but typically the club will do a farewell to a player if we're not going to keep that player next year. So the fact that we didn't do a farewell to Jack, like we did with Dale, that tells me that I think the club has got a deal agreed with Jack. But again, I don't know anything in that situation. I'm not saying it's the right or wrong thing to do, but that's just something that I noted.
Well, and I completely appreciate bringing that up. And you're right. On that point, there is a strong whisper that Hunt will go next year to the Tigers. It's not a done deal, and he may stay. It's up to the Sharks to kind of allow that. But if that was the case, he didn't get a goodbye either. And I understand why that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
But I guess, it's all a bit up in the air. And they probably had a few things to worry about, like the Sean Johnson goodbye, which I, in hindsight, understand. Cam McInnes, Dale, who is retiring, so to speak. Like, we know he's retired, but it was a final goodbye officially as a player. So I think that's where it gets a bit murky, but completely appreciate what you're saying. I'm glad you brought it up. There's talk about why did Williams come on for Rudolph in the final few minutes, and I can tell
4 minutes. It was in the 4 minutes.
I can tell you why. and that is he is seen as our best defensive forward, Jack Williams. That is why he was brought on. So with that in mind, I understand. They probably don't think he's going to be on the end of that ball and also drop that ball. It was a very catchable ball. So I'm not blaming Cam McInnes, and I'm also not letting Williams off the hook. But there's a sort of in between where I'm like, this shouldn't be happening anyway. So I don't want to hammer necessarily one only of the guys. We do need to move on from that moment because we'll be here forever. Now, I was of the opinion, Kieran, that if we won one of the two games leading into the finals, I'd be okay with that. I don't think I'm now okay with losing two games moving into the finals. I don't think that's good mojo. I think we need to go to Brookie and win. I'm not necessarily throwing every dude out there that we have available if there is not much room for us to move. But I think we are the last game of the round, so we will kind of know what's happening as far as ladder and positions go. And I would be taking that into account. If we can't move anywhere, and we'll get into the ladder stuff shortly, then I wouldn't be risking anyone that shouldn't be risked. But having said that, with Nico, for example, there were moments when he looked awesome, moments when he looked less awesome. The more touches he gets against a team like Manly, if he's fully fit and if we need him to play, I think it's definitely to our advantage and his advantage, because at time looked awesome, at time looked clunky. That's going to happen when you have 9 weeks off or whatever it's been. So not a criticism of him. Let me ask you, how did you think Nico went? How did you think he gelled with the team, with Trindle, etc.?
I think it was pretty clear that Trindle was steering the ship around. And I don't know why I couldn't get that sentence out just then. But Trindle was the main guy, and Nico was playing off the back of Trindle. And he did look good in certain points with the ball. I thought the ball playing was quite good. Some of his defense was quite physical. There was obviously that bad miss that he had on the young centre there. That was just that led to that huge break, and it was kind of all downhill from there for Nico's game after that point happened. This is why I say that we need him back on the field as quickly as possible so we can get the reps in before the finals, because if something like that happens against the Storm, and Cameron Munster has done it to Nico in the past, it's very hard to cop. So I think getting him back on the field and getting the reps in his legs are going to be a real big help. I think as we go into Brookvale this weekend, he has to play because we need to get the best out of him. We can't just disregard him and say, all right, we're going to stick with Trindle and Atkinson, because you're paying all that money for Nico and you need to get the most out of him, right? You can't just move on from him. And if you do drop him in round 26 after 1 week back from an injury, you're going to ruin the guy's confidence. He's going to be out of the club. Now, there might be people out there that are saying that's good and I want him out of the club, but he's only 18 months removed or so from being the Dally M Player of the Year. Before State of Origin, he was in great form.
There's no reason to drop him.
But I'm just saying there is people out there that are saying this online, right? So I'm just saying that I can't agree with that line of thinking, because, again, he's our main man and we need him to stand up and do well for us. So I think it's good that he's back. The one concern I've got about having that game on a Sunday is the turnaround. Going down to Melbourne is obviously, one of the longer trips compared to the other options in the top four. So that's going to be a pain for us.
It'll be Saturday night, I think.
It would probably be the Saturday night game. You would hope for the Sunday, but you're going to be probably getting that Saturday slot.
I think it's penciled in, and no one book your flights based on my information. It's penciled in for Saturday night.
Well, there you go. So, again, you're going to have a bit of a shorter turnaround there. I probably would look to drop Jack just because of that drop ball, and I know that's a little bit harsh, but, again, I think that there has to be consequences for things. Toby got dropped, and then Toby, since he got dropped and came back, I think Toby's worlds apart from where he was before he got dropped after he did that bad error, which cost us the game as well. So hopefully Jack can bounce back and be bigger and better than ever for us, because we're going to need people like him at his best.
All right, I know we're jumping around a little bit here, Kieran, but let's talk about some forwards. Now, the big difference, and it was pointed out to me by award-winning, and he won't mind me saying this, Dave Riccier, but it's there for everyone to see, and obviously he's not the only one seeing it. But he sent it to me on Saturday night, and that was that he's now a Shark in Adam Fanua-Blake. Ran for over 200 metres, and the Sharks did not have one they had one forward in Toby Rudolph who made 105 metres.
And that would have been off Toby's last hit up.
There you go. So that was a huge difference in how the game went. I know that at times they had a lot more possession, so we didn't have the ball. All of our backs went for at least 100 metres, including Katoa and Stone Street, who were around 170. Stone Street had that excellent long-range try, so you can take maybe 50 or 60 off that, if you know what I mean. But forward pack, so Rudolph, 46 minutes, 100 metres. Brayley ran for almost 70. Fantastic. Kafusi, 35 minutes, 70 metres. Britton, 65, so he's down on past weeks. Wilton, around 70. McInnes, 92, which is down for him, and he played for 55 minutes. You go to your bench, half a game for Jack Williams, 65 metres. Royce Hunt played 20 minutes for 70 metres. Tall Tom Hazelton, half an hour for 37 metres. And again, at these times, we didn't have the ball, so I'm not saying that they didn't put in. Braden Hamlin-Ueli, 16 minutes, 1 run, 7 metres. Now, again, he might have been on there when we didn't have the ball, so it's not a shot at BHU. We love BHU. But that bench to me on the weekend says, that's not the way to go or the way to run it. Or maybe they were just all on the field and we didn't have the ball. We might need to study up on that.
Yeah.
But that is alarm bells.
Yeah. I was sitting with Josh, one of the co-hosts here, and when we were watching the game, the momentum changed when our bench came on at the start of the game. So about 20 minutes in, our bench came on, and then that's when we started to look really good. And we were sort of saying,
right,
teams can struggle with our bench because we can play that power game. Then what happened in the second half was all the ill discipline and the penalties, which, I don't agree with 90% of those penalties, but they happened. And the impact players were bringing off the bench were coming on, and it was just defend. And so like Hamlin-Ueli's stats there, I was waiting for him to come on because I'm of the belief if we are to try and take a step up, we need him to be at his A game for us, right? And when he came on the field, it was just defense. Like we didn't have the ball. That was that period where we just didn't get the ball. And so, his stats don't look great because of the situation like that. But that's when we need to pull out a plan B for how we do it. Because again, if we're trying to do that power game off the bench, Tom, Royce, they're not built, even Hamlin-Ueli, they're not built to defend for long stretches. They're built to get the ball, get over the advantage line, quick play the balls, the next guy goes, right? So that's where you would like your Kafusis and your Jack Williamses, who are more locked down that middle and defend and strangle teams and of all that type of stuff. So I don't know what the plan B is for how we run the bench. Do we need that utility guy in there like Atkinson who will come in there and just work and have that level of fitness and that creativity around the middle with leg speed? That could be something, but we're at round 27 now. It's very hard to try and change and move away from what has worked for us. So we've got to stick with that power game. We've got to get it right, and we just can't give away those penalties, even when some of them aren't deserved. We just can't give the referees any excuses.
Yeah, so we will talk about the refs during the week on the show and that kind of thing. I mean, everyone who listens to the show knows my thing around refs is that they don't really decide the games. In this game, the sin binning definitely changed the game, and the sin bin in the audio on the ref said was for repeated, I think, foul play infringements. It wasn't necessarily for that one.
It's ridiculous.
Falling high tackle, right? So the captain said they weren't warned about it.
Yeah.
And he just went, "You're off." So that seems a bit crazy. He lost control. There were a lot of 6 agains, a lot of penalties. There was a lot of movement for the Warriors to get back into that game. I'm not one that would think that they were doing it for Sean. I don't believe that. But I think that when a team gets a roll on in this modern game, it's hard to stop. And that's where I give the Sharks a little bit of leeway in how they defended, because it was just an onslaught of the opposing team getting a really good rubber the green for that sort of 20-minute period or whatever, and it's hard to stop. Now, they kept going to both sides. They had more success on our left. I was alarmed by that because in the past month, Stone Street and Nero have been really good, as well as the guys next to them. The other one I want to be critical of, and you're not going to like it, and we love him on this show, but our boy was out fishing for one of those tries. He was just, like, if you go watch the replay, Kieran, of the Katoa try that he let in, I think it was against Montoya, I guess. It's a horrific defensive read. Now, it's only one. I'm not hanging the guy out, but he needs to be better because he just shoots in. There is no reason to shoot in. And then when he shoots back out, it's too late, and the guy's covering him. It's too late as well. And I was a bit disappointed in the Tongan fisherman right there. It's one thing though, one play.
Yeah, and I did notice it watching the game live that they were doing a lot of that, like a lot of shooting in, right? And obviously that's a plan to shut down some of those long balls that those Warriors halves can throw. But that's the second time in a couple of weeks where we've seen Sione get isolated like that and kind of drop his head. So, we need him back, and hopefully when he gets Ronnie back this week, hopefully, his confidence will stick back up and we can just start to switch on because Manly are missing a lot of players this week as well. So let's get the Tongan fishermen firing.
They are. So we're going to hopefully we'll have Jesse back. I'm not sure about Ronaldo. Let's hope he's there. And Sifa Talakai, I don't know either, but I'm assuming he's closer. So, again, don't risk it if it's a risk, but if he's ready to rock, chuck him out there. So the team should look a little bit different and a little bit more A-team than guys coming in for the A-team. So that's a positive. Manly will be missing Travojevic. I believe they'll be missing Saab. Thank goodness for that. And looking at the ladder, Kieran, so Melbourne are locked in for number one. We know that. Penrith in the box seat now to take second. They are playing at home this week against the Titans. Now, on their day, the Titans can score a lot of points. Penrith have some injuries. I'm still backing Penrith in here. We know how good they are. So they'll probably finish second on 40 points. The Roosters play Souths in their big derby. Now, we know the Roosters, or if you don't know, they've lost two guys to ACLs overnight. Their halfback and Brandon Smith. I think a few other injuries floating around.
Victor Radley did his shoulder.
Yeah. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Manu will go to 5'8". Sandon Smith will come in at halfback, you'd think. They've still got a pretty good team. They should still roll. Yep, they should still roll the Rabbitohs. So at that point, if we win, we still finish fourth if all those teams win. If the Roosters lose and we win, we go to third, we go to Penrith. Okay? Behind us are Canterbury on 34 points, so 2 points behind us. Their for and against, though, is, about 68 points difference. Our better. So if they have a big win, we have a big loss, they can climb up to fourth. We go to fifth. But at this point, it's unlikely. So at this point, we're pretty much going to go to Melbourne. We could go to Penrith.
Unless the Cowboys win by 200 points.
Yes. And the whole bummer is if we win the game, there is potential that we have a home final. That's out the window, but that's what we were playing for. That's what's so annoying about it all. Manly were missing a bunch of people. Let's look at their situation while I have this open. Manly are currently in 7th on 33 points. So they can rise up to 35 and get a home final, elimination final. So they're going to be fighting hard, Manly. There is no doubt about that. And it's going to be tough as usual. The good news is we've won 3 of the past 4 games against Manly. So that's already a twist on the storyline that we can't beat Manly. We've won the past 2 games against Manly at Brookvale, which is very much a Craig Fitzgibbon thing. So he's won the past 2 games there. Big win in 2022 and a tight win last year. So the whole this team can't play in Brookvale thing, it's not a thing for Craig Fitzgibbon and the current mob. 3 of the past 4 in general we've won. There's not a lot of fear there for the newer brigade, for younger fans, for people like you and I, and older fans. There's obviously a lot of scars there. So not suggesting it's going to be easy, but that whole thing we can't win there, well, actually we can. That's that out of the way, Kieran. Tell me where we're at. What's happening? Are we taking... I know it's a backward step. Some people are just, why bother? I'm not in that camp. I think there's still a lot of things we could do, especially with the pressure off us a little bit, which is how we like it.
Yep.
How are you feeling?
So I think if I look at it, and I say this quite often, there's different tiers of teams, and I kind of had us pegged with the Roosters as a notch below the Storm and the Panthers because I think that they're of a much better quality. A lot of people from the outside were saying the Bulldogs and the Sharks were at the same level. We saw the Bulldogs kind of get tested, and I don't think the Bulldogs performed. I think that we are a better team than the Bulldogs.
Sure.
I think with all the injuries now that the Roosters have gone through, I'm putting a line through the Roosters. Like they can't do anything now. They've just lost 3 key guys, right? So that's some big injuries there. I don't think the Roosters can win it, like missing Radley and Smith and all those guys, right? So I think that's going to be a really hard effort for the Roosters to get up and get through the final series, especially their first game will probably be, if we've got the Storm, they'll be going up against Penrith, right? So that's going to be a really tough task for them. I think we're going to have a really tough task to go down to Melbourne and try and win twice in Melbourne, right? But I think the one thing I would say is you've got to kind of look at this situation as Fitzy would, right? So put yourself in Fitzy's shoes. Don't put yourself in as the fan saying, why don't they just, play Tuku and drop Nico and do all these things, right? You've got to look at the squad you've got. You've got to look at the whole preseason, the 12 months of work that has been put in for this moment. And these guys are desperate to get that noise around the finals off, right? So if I'm Fitzy right now, I'm doubling down on that us against the world siege mentality of everyone's writing us off, right? And I'm calling out our forwards and I'm saying the only way we can get this done is if you step up. And I'm putting up their meters from the weekend. And we just went through the reasons why the meters were down because, again, they didn't have the ball. But I'm putting that up on there and I'm ripping into them and saying this is why we bought Fanua Blake. Who's going to step up this against Manly and against the Storm or Penrith, whoever we get, and say, guys, you need to do this. You need to lead us. Because once those guys get that roll on, that's the only way we can win. So I'm not a believer yet that we can still win the comp, but I think we have some moving pieces that if we can find the right mix and the right balance, we can definitely go further than we have in the finals in the last couple of years because a straight sets exit this year would be an absolute disaster because I feel we are much better than teams 5, 6, and 7 and 8. So the first week's going to be tough, but hey, you just front load all the effort, all the energy, and just see what you can pull out because anything can happen in the finals. You never know, right? They could have 3 HIAs in the first 5 minutes, and they could be at 6s and 7s. So that's why I always say it's not, people saying why bother? Well, because you never know what could happen. Like the Roosters yesterday, losing 3 players like they did, completely changed that game. Everyone had the Roosters winning that game against Canberra, right?
Yep.
And then those injuries happened, and then Canberra, throughout the game, it wasn't because of the injuries that the Canberra Raiders won. But I'm just saying anything can happen, right? And so I think we have a decent team. I think if everybody's fit and firing, we can do something. But so far, we haven't seen that from a consistent period this year, right? We saw it in glimpses where we beat the Roosters and we beat the Storm back-to-back weeks. And then we went against Penrith feeling super confident, and Penrith put 40 on us. So what I need to see is that kind of us against the world. Nobody rates us. Like, let's prove somebody wrong. Because in my business world, in my business life, I have a thing. It's called the 3 whys. Why do anything? Why now? And why bother? And if we can't answer those things, like what's the pain? Like what pain are we addressing here? If we can't answer that and we can't answer the pain that we're feeling as a club, if we can't answer the why now and the why do anything, then we're not serious in the final. So I think that there is a narrative there that we can cook up internally between those balls, us against the world. And the cockeyed optimist in me says, you use that result and you say, all right, you've got to turn that around. Otherwise, pack up and see you guys in November, and we're doing sandhills for the next 4 months.
There's no more sandhills. Biggest bummer about the situation is that the finals are not this week. I think I'd just rather fly in, and I say that only because the Manly game could be meaningless. So, yep, we could get the reps in. I'm not backtracking on what we said. Some guys need more reps than others, but I think based on the way we lost, the disappointment from the fan base, from the players themselves, the coach, I'd love to throw ourselves into playing Melbourne this week in Melbourne. That would be the go time now. I think in other weeks.
Yep.
Got pros and cons, but that just popped into my head. I want to give a shout out to Blake Brayley, who I thought was the best out there for us. And I need to see that again this week. I thought he was really good. There was a moment where one of the most disliked players on the field, Dylan Walker, was really getting into Blake and really ripping into him. You could hear it in the audio. And Blake just stood his ground and was awesome. And I love this new Blake Brayley attitude. I think some other guys could probably lose a bit of attitude, to be honest. I think Blake needed it, and it's awesome.
Yep.
Just on the halves, Kieran, before we wrap up, people talking about who was dominant, who was more dominant. The touches actually evened out. So Hines had 45 possessions, Trindle had 43. Hines ran for a lot more. Trindle had 2 try assists, 2 line break assists. Nicker had 1. And as far as the kicks go, Trindle had double the kicks, so 12 kicks for 475 metres. Hines had 6 kicks for 142. So kicking didn't even out, but as far as touches go, it pretty much evened out. I can't tell you when they touched it and when they didn't, so it might have ebbed and flowed, or it might have been one half this guy, one half. You can work that out for yourself. But just as far as dominating halves go, and I thought Trindle was pretty good. I thought he was pretty good. So I didn't think that was a disaster. Nico coming back and changing the game. I did notice that we didn't play as simple, but that may not be a Nico thing. It could be game environment. It could be a whole bunch of things. Atkinson out in the centers. I think I long for that Titans power game. I think that's how we win the comp. I don't think we're going to play that way necessarily. So that's that. But Manly this week, Kieran, it's going to be a wild week. We're going to have a wild week of podcasting hopefully as well. We do need to wrap up because you and I, at this very early time of the day, need to go about our business. So no fun and games on this episode. It's all serious now on this episode, but we'll have some fun and games for sure coming up. Kieran, thank you for your time. Appreciate you. Glad you had a good time at the game on the weekend, for most of the game at least. And I'm sure we have more to say, but we'll have to do it another time. SharkCast Pod, get in touch with us. We've got some amazing mail coming up this week, Kieran, and it's not all horrible. And
so that mailbag is going to be on fire.
It's on fire, but it's not all horrible, and this guy can never be seen out of the house ever again, etc. Like, there is some of that, but there is some really smart, intelligent rugby league talk from our listeners, so I can't wait to rip into that. And we will talk to everyone real soon this week. More episodes coming. Until then, Kieran, thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your morning. And everyone watching and listening, thanks for your time. Appreciate you. SharkCastPod@gmail.com, on the DMs and the socials. We will talk to you soon. Up, Cronulla. We got to do this. We got to do this for all of our sakes. Up. Speak to you soon.